What's going on, YouTube? Cars and trucks today. I found these. These are a Walmart exclusive. 97.50 total production on each run. This is kind of a newer thing. A 3-car set. M2 machines. These are released. They were kind of making buzz online. M2. Some other people were spreading the word that they were coming out. And then I was alerted by a buddy that they were in the store, so I took them right up on that offer, and I met them in there and I bought them. So they're really cool. These are probably going to be difficult to find. I still haven't found the hearse transport truck locally. These are probably going to be sold out very quickly. It seems like they'll get 3 or 4 of them in the store of each style. One being the square bodies, the other one being the fox bodies. So we'll look at both. We'll look at the trucks first. This is my first cabin chassis from M2, without the bed. So we'll take a look at that together as well. And then we'll look at the Ford products, and I got some Fords down from the shelves, and we'll look at those as well. So we'll see all the different people that made the fox body, even the even the mainline stuff. So let's take a look here. I didn't take it out of the package yet, or out of the acrylic case. Of course, M2 does a good job giving us these nice boxes. A lot of people put their customs in these boxes and ship them, or they're useful. But these do take up a lot of space. Typically, I'll have a space just for packaging. The vehicle's most noteworthy. We are going to take these out. They're not going to stay bound up. This is going into the collection. These aren't for extras or storage or anything like that. Brown one, step side. We got the chassis cab. And we got the little short bed here. Kind of cool. What do they say? Let's take a zoom real quick. So Cheyenne Super 10. We got Chevys and GMCs in the same set, so that's kind of cool. GMC Sierra Grande 15 custom, and a 76 Scottsdale Chevy. So it looks like that red's a Chevy, and then this truck with the flames, that's gonna be the GMC. This brown one's kind of tickling my fancy. Let's take a look. Got screws on the bottom. And you got these little tabs. These just pop off. Let's see. There we go. Kind of had to do a big crunch to get it to go. Let's take the brown one off first and see how that looks. These come off pretty quickly, so I wasn't too worried about having to do this on camera. Look at this brown one real quick as we move on down the line. It's supposed to be a 73. So first year for the Chevy, the square body. It's got their very narrow track, wide tire. Metal base. Opening hood. Looks like they have like a modern Chevy plant in it. Kind of like an LS motor. And you got that cool brown. Let's lower the camera a little bit. There we go. And let's zoom a little, see what we're looking at here on the tampoing. Tires look pretty good. Very close to the body though. It's barely legible right there. You can see how they have to make the bed really shallow. But to be fair, real trucks that have this done where the frame is cut apart, they have to reassemble the bed that way. Some of the less finished trucks, the bed's cut out completely to make room for the axle. Stock interior, looks very nice. That could be detailed very good. There's your engine again. So we've looked at these in detail before. Very close to what we've already seen. Here's one that I've had for a while. I believe that's also a 73. So not a lot of change. This one I just kind of tuned up by fixing the wheels and tires and doing the stance correctly. But this one with the stock equipment that M2 gave it looks pretty good. It's got like these Keystone mags, big and littles. Looks good. One of their better tires. It's a cool truck. It's got some nice striping on it. There's the rear deck. The step side portion is nice. M2 looks like most of the manufacturers on premium. Bed's a separate piece of casting, so you can always do what you want with these. You know, I really think that when we talk about the castings, especially with the cars too, I think the progression is going to have to be the crew cab dually and the crew cab single wheel. Whoever's going to do it first is really going to have a winner on their hands. The old Chevy 3+3 cabs from the square body era, whether they were 3/4 1-ton trucks, I mean, they're awesome. They'll look really cool. They'll be able to use as a tow rig pretty easily. I think the customizers are asking for it. You know, they keep making crew cabs out of these trucks. I think everybody can agree that that would be very successful. Hopefully that we see that soon. I'm sure they're discussing that. One of the manufacturers. Let's take a look at the wild and crazy chassis cab truck. It's got like a black metallic paint. I think it's actually pretty interesting. They've had this out for a while. M2. This year debuted this style of custom that they've done. And we'll see. Let's see how it translates to this. What I always thought was funny was they had this stock-ish exhaust that kind of is the here. I wonder if they'd make a bed to fit that. Because you could see the chassis is completely different than these, if no one's ever figured that out yet, if you haven't been able to compare these two. It's a completely different base. Obviously the body would swap between the two. I probably want to play it this more because I'm curious to see if the bed will also go on there. It seems like the screw holes are in the same place. So, something to play with later. It's supposed to have like an air tank here. You know, a lot of these trucks would have air suspensions, meaning that you can raise and lower them at will, as long as your air system is up to snuff. It should do it. Kind of a striking paint job. You can see the metallic. See if we can get a better view real quick. There. Rolls nicely. Let's back this up. Nothing scrapes. Seems like these would be fuel tanks. And that would be the accumulator for the air tank. Yeah, just the exhaust is kind of funny. So you can see how high it sits. Seems like it would be better pushed down. Same interior, bucket seats. Let's see what kind of engine they did with this. Same engine. They can change these at will because basically that's just a flat plate that kind of gets pushed in there. When we looked at that Datsun pickup truck, they all kind of do the same thing. Again, when you compare this, when we take off the red truck, we'll show some differences. I mean, M2, again, they run sort of large on their casting compared to the Auto World. We'll look at that in a second. I think I got an Auto World here that we'll look at. This one's kind of cool too. I like this obviously probably because of the stock nature of this truck. I mean, even though it's lowered, I believe M2 is going to get on the fact of doing a lifted one or a four-wheel drive. I don't think all of them are going to be lowered trucks. Well, it seems like every M2 truck I get has been lowered, at least on the square body. Hopefully they'll do a four-wheel drive soon. They might even jump on the square body Blazer bandwagon, maybe. Okay, well, please be patient. I'll just say that because I am using tools in this video. Alright. Let's see here. Let's get that tire sitting good. So, a lot of times, and just as a thing, and I might do a video soon about correcting some of these issues. A lot of times there's just a lot of flashing on these wheels that push that tire off. And so even though you're trying to seat it on the rim, it stays up. So basically take the tires off and smooth out the rough edges. They put an SS badge. I really never had an SS truck before, from Chevy. But a lot of people do that. This paint seems to be just a normal red. No metallic, but it laid out good. M2 does really good paint jobs. They typically do pretty good jobs with the painting. But these cabs are a little bit bigger than Auto World. Let's see, same engine or is it stock? Let's see. Let's get the zoom. Oh my. That's like sort of like the blower setup on the Corvette. So it's got like that pancake intercooler type deal where it shares the space with the blower portion. So it could be like a quote unquote LT4 block, or not the older one from the 90s, but the newest Corvette C7 plant on the Z06. They got blowers that are really, really flat. So these wheels are really cool. They're like a 5-spoke torque thrust, but of course you can see they're staggered. The narrow ones in the front, and you get a big dish in the rear. Another tub truck. So they're kind of like mini tub. They're all kind of mini tub. N2 gets away with this. You can see they have a maximum width that they can go to here, which is on like their stock vehicles. And they just change these plastic pieces so they don't have to change the casting. Kind of shown that off before. But this is kind of cool. It's like a spec chassis. The whole thing is metal. And definitely looks like something I want to play with. So that'll be some other time. Black rims. Alright, so we looked at the square bodies. We've seen these before. Let's look at some Auto Worlds real quick just to see the scale difference. Let's all drive over my I had a guy come in and I have a delivery of them. So let's take a look here. Well, we'll take the Canadian one down. Let's just use this. So look at that. Actually, I also have one off camera here too. You could see how it's littler. The Auto World's littler. I've done this on another video. So, it's depicting the same wheelbase. A lot of people, I mean, I'm a fan of the Auto World casting, even though it is smaller. I wish they would make a long bed. And of course we have green light too that we can throw in. I don't think I have a green light lowered truck, but it's funny how they all do their own thing. Green light's kind of like in between the sizes. And it's like they concentrate more on the 80s and these two are in the 70s. They like the 80s and the 90s, early 90s. It's funny. Alright. Just a little comparison. It's always nice to see different toolings. How they stack up, especially when they're competing for the same market. It's funny that they have to make their own version, but that is nice to have variety. Okay, let's look at the Mustangs. They're kind of interesting. Again, they're very M2-ish. M2, Auto World, the Greenlight, they'll have their design philosophy that they kind of follow. And this is a very M2 casting, and they kind of do it their own way. They have a kind of a brute force method of constructing vehicles. Let's take a look at the difference. Let me get the some comparison vehicles too real quick. Let's see here. This. I just thought of more castings to compare, so I had to reference my collection. Okay, and maybe others have done this already, but this is something I always like to do with everyone anyway. Take a look at those boys while we take a look at these Mustangs. I'm going to take the acrylic lid off before I get the camera on so there's no glare. They did all basically the same body car. So this is 88s and 87s. 1987 was the first year for the smooth headlights. 85 and 86, those cars are very similar. Those are the 4-eye cars. They had recessed headlights, sealed beams, and then we went to this projector style type deal. So these are all kind of similar. They all have the same tubbed wheels, except for this one. This is a pretty stock, although it says on the bottom 350 GT. Then Ford never did that, so it's kind of like a custom car. A popular, very, very popular, especially in the earlier days of these cars, was putting a 351 in them, because it never came with a 351 until much later. They had 5.8 liter Mustang, but that was basically at the last hurrah for the push rod before they went to the single cam cars in 94 and 95. So, or no, actually no, 95 was the last year of push rod. So new body, still Fox based chassis, and then 96, 97. Yeah, 96, 97 was the last, or the first for the new engine. It's kind of a fictitious Boss 302 get up, because they didn't do a Boss Mustang in the Fox series. They did it in a later series. Those were called SN95 cars for the chassis code. Still a Fox-based chassis. Cobra Jet. This is kind of cool. So this is basically like the old drag colors. They're showing a twin turbo. We'll look at the hood in a minute, what that has for store. And there's our stock one. Alright, so let's start. We'll get to the stock one last, because that one can compare mostly to what we already have on the collection. So we'll look at a Greenlight Foxbody. Also have, I think around here, yes, we have to look at the Matchbox version too, just because the base on the Matchbox notchback says it's 1/64 scale. So I thought that was great. Let's just take all these cars off real quick, because we'll be able to swap between them. But you can see the orange one, they have the headlights there. You could see the post going through to mount the headlight. So that's very prominent. They also, I noticed, they don't paint the backing of the headlight. So you'll notice on all three of these different colors, it's prominent how the headlight looks. So the color shines through the headlight bucket. That's what I'm trying to say. And that, you notice that. So I'm sure these cars would clean up very nicely with a quick detail. I don't think that would be a problem whatsoever. Problem is, you got to be careful. So when you take off those thin pieces of plastic, like the ones that do the headlight buckets, you can crack and bust that plastic off. What I suggest is using, like, what would you say, an iron. So like a soldering iron type thing, but you got to heat up the metal around it very short period of time. Don't use any open flame like a lighter or anything. And that should loosen it enough where you can pop it out from the back. You got to disassemble the whole vehicle. But basically you would be able to paint behind that and it would look a little bit more realistic. Right now you can see the color kind of shines through. The size of these are decent. And separately molded spoiler. They don't have the intakes molded though in the front. So on the GT cars they had the more ground effects, and that would have been a hole. That's kind of hard to replicate in 1/64 scale. The tampo for the striping is good. It even goes up into the grille under the hood shut line. They used a modern 5-liter engine. So they had 4.6 and 5-liter. Looks more like a 5-liter intake design. So it's a newer engine, not the old one. Molded in there. And then your taillights all red. You could see what I was talking about. So M2, instead of putting a screw back here, for obvious reasons, they probably didn't want to heavy up this casting because there's a lot of detail there with the rear base and the interior. But to get around that, they had to put a hole in the bumper as a tab for the chassis. So there's only one screw to hold the chassis right there. So I noticed that because I was like, there was never any area here. Actually, on the GT cars, this would have had some writing on it, like embossed writing Mustang. And then your tailpipes were turn downs on the GTs. Where the LX cars, you'd see the pipe come out. So they still had these turbines. These turbine-style alloys, 4-lug wheels on the Mustang. It wasn't 5-lug yet until they upgraded. And then here's the other one. It's kind of like a fictitious car, something like a custom car. These also could have been, and since they're showing Ford Performance licensing, I haven't stayed up with the show car circuit, but the manufacturers, the OEMs, they'll do cars like this to show off the parts catalog, Ford Performance catalog parts that you can get for your Foxbody. So these could have been that too. They could have been licensed from Ford. Someone, if you know about that, you can comment below whether these real cars or not. That I just don't know. You can see back here. So what they have to do, they have to be pretty sneaky. They got a black base, but they have to come around and paint that tab on the body, the color of the body. Otherwise it'll really stand out. But you could see it's kind of sad that they have to do that. The other thing is that since this hangs down so low, I wonder if they'll be able to replicate an LX body, because the LX won't have ground effects that low. I wonder what the solution will be. So this one has an interesting motor. I'll have to use this again. The panel line on this is really tight. This is like a twin turbo setup. You can see the dual air intakes. Stock wouldn't have had that. So this is sort of like a twin turbo looking engine. You could do all sorts of things with these cars. There's a lot of different engines you can put in the chassis. One of the reasons that's possible is that you can kind of redo the subframe in this car to your needs in terms of what kind of engine, small or big, that you want to put in there. You can see the dual exhaust and then those wide tires. Very wide. The front looks good. I'd say it would look kind of cool, look more realistic if it probably had two of these, both of the front tires on. I'm sure they'll make plenty of these. They have all sorts of lines from M2. Like they'll have the little model kit line. They'll have the ones where it comes with 2-pack and the 4-post lift. They got ones with transporters. So I'm sure these are going to be all over the place. Would be nice to see an LX. I mean, the hatch cars are good. The reason the notchback is so revered by Foxbody people is that it was the lightest body that you could get. Now, if you did an LX hatch, those are light too, because GTs were heavier because they had a lot more equipment and they usually had more body panels. But which these cars are depicting GT Mustangs, but the LX car, the notchback was always the lightest, and that's why this is the one that's so revered by Foxbody people, because it really is the lightest car, even though it looks more like a car than it does a sports car. This is cool. It's got like centerline mags, so this would be like a very popular drag racing wheel, especially here in the States. It looks very nice. These are kind of easily identifiable because you can't, they're just solid. You can't see through them. There's no holes through them. And they make a lot of sizes and they're quite light for racing. Of course, again, this, when you look underneath, it looks very stock. Doesn't look like there's long tube headers or anything. Obviously, there's cats here, so race exhaust really probably wouldn't even look like that. This car too says twin turbo on the hood. Thought that was kind of funny. Let's look in here. Same setup as the orange Boss car. Really don't paint anything except for that center intake. So again, using that newer Foxbody profile. So it's saying twin turbo 5.0. Kind of cool. And it's got the Cobra Jet snake on it, which they've used all the way in the past for Mustang drag cars. Very, very famous name. Got the asymmetrical stripe too. Thought that was kind of good. Let's take a look at tempo work on this one, just because I think it's one of the more striking ones. They do a really good job on the headlights. Look at the difference between them and what Greenlight does. So both of them are great. You can see Greenlight does the lines that the lens would have, and also you can see the difference between painting them and not painting them. It looks kind of good on the black just because this holds down the light, but when you have this, not so much. You could see this doesn't look as realistic, the red car, than either of these two do. So, and you can also see, just real quick, when we back up, the size difference between the two vehicles. This being a smaller profile, just purely on the front. And you also could see the difference between LX and GT. GT would have solid grill face here, with the lower intake being the majority where the air came in. LX cars had a lower and upper intake. And no ground effects, as you can see. No fog lights, none of that stuff. So it was a much more pure Mustang, but it would come with the same engine that the GT did, so hence their popularity. Alright, well, I think we looked at these M2 cars today pretty well. Coming to a Walmart near you. I know that not everybody has access to these Walmarts, and it can be a shame, but sometimes there's cars that other countries produce that are very difficult to get in the United States. So it's always a push-pull with diecast collectors, isn't it? These are decent. They're kind of cool. I like them that they're the first of this type of thing from M2 that I've seen. So it's kind of cool getting them. We got more to come. I still have to do the 1/25th scale Greenlight that I got in. And then we found some more premium Hot Wheels. So we'll take a look at that. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope everybody's doing well. Thank you for your kind words and thumbs up and subscriptions. More to come. Till next time.